How's it going there, folks? We have the CPGM 2018 Shrine Game recap. We actually got some decent footage from the Shrine Game, and just wanted to kind of give you guys our thoughts on who stood out, who made themselves some money. Obviously, there's some guys who got, the call up to the big game, the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. So, gentlemen, I'm going to get your impressions of this particular game. I want to start with the quarterbacks, and just to give you an idea who these players were.
Not good, bro.
It wasn't very. It wasn't an encouraging performance by the quarterbacks, and it's been that way the last 2 years. I mean, you have to go back to 2016 when Vernon Adams and a couple other quarterbacks. But Vernon Adams stole the show. I think he threw like 3 touchdowns and like 4 or 5 drives or whatever the case may be. And really, there hasn't been much offense in the Shrine Game over the last 2 seasons. Last year, Elijah McGuire, De'Veon Smith, they looked pretty good. Obviously Elijah McGuire made an impact with the New York Jets. A lot of good talent at this game, but typically points have been hard to come by. For the West team, you had Jeremiah Briscoe of Sam Houston State, Nick Shimonik from Texas Tech, and Nick Stevens from Colorado State. And on the East side, you had J.T. Barrett and Memphis's Riley Ferguson. Quentin Flowers didn't play in this particular game. He had a death in the family and decided not to play. Understandable, obviously. He's been through a lot in terms of his family. But Heather, you mentioned it. It wasn't really impressive by the quarterbacks. What did you see?
I seen quarterbacks that look uncomfortable on the center. These are NFL position coaches coaching these Shrine Games, coaching these All-Stars. And, they're going to put them on the center because that's what the NFL wants to see. They want to see these guys on the center, do a 5-7 step drop back, put your back to the defense. And they just looked uncomfortable, man. They didn't look good. They only looked serviceable when they were in shotgun running the RPOs, the run pass options. And, my eye was on Riley Ferguson because I think that's the guy that may have the most upside.
Sure.
And he didn't look good. He couldn't go through his progressions. He mostly went to his first read. And, I don't see a guy that could be starting caliber NFL quarterback.
They looked uncomfortable, to your point. They looked really uncomfortable coming away from under center. Even the handoffs, even the exchanges seemed to be, kind of fish out of water because these guys, again, are so accustomed to being in the shotgun and not necessarily given a cadence per se, clapping their hands or mesh point handoffs as opposed to running a stretch or a dive or an ISO or whatever the case may be, a power. Particularly when they turn their back to the defense, they just, they don't know what's going on because they're so accustomed to being able to stare down a linebacker, see if he steps up, whether I hand or throw, you know what I mean? So it was the symptoms of their struggles were conducive to or contingent upon the way they played and the way they're asked to play. And again, like you said, these coaches, these scouts, they want to see whether or not you're comfortable doing a 3-5-7 step drop. Clearly, that wasn't the case, and there were a lot of struggles. There was a lot of inaccuracy. Balls were behind, high, low. It needs to be noted, obviously, that these guys don't have a lot of time to work with guys that they've never played with before. So that's challenging enough, but
and doing something you're not
comfortable with certainly kind of reared its ugly head in this particular game. And again, it's been this way the last couple of years.
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out Poopa T. He wrote a post for CouchPotatoGM.com under the radar draft gems 2018, and he highlighted a quarterback in this game. He didn't play particularly well in this Shrine Game, but Jeremiah Briscoe, Sam Houston State quarterback. He's 6'3", 225, 3-year starter. Can make all the throws, 10,000 plus yards and 90 plus touchdowns. And Poopa T thinks he's going to be a steal. So that's a guy to watch.
Yeah, he actually, they had the whole situation at UAB where they didn't have their football team. They got it back. So he transferred out, ended up at Sam Houston State, put out some really eye-popping numbers. Hopefully through the process he can kind of build on it. I'm not sure exactly how he performed during the practice week per se, but he clearly was invited to the Shrine Game for a reason. And Poopa T, as you mentioned, identified him as a guy that really needs to be, we need to keep an eye on. Let's move on to the running back position. On the West team, you had Jordan Chun from Troy, Justin Jackson from Northwestern, and Philip Lindsay from Colorado. The East had Chase Edmonds from Fordham. I guess that's another player that Poopa T highlighted in his draft gems post, as well as D'Ernest Johnson from South Florida and Ralph Webb from Vanderbilt. Heather, what do you think about any of the running backs stand out?
I thought a couple running backs did pretty well. this week. Number one, Philip Lindsay from Colorado. I thought he run effectively in this game. I think he had about 12 carries, 51 yards. Fact check me, CPGM Headley. And the running back from USF, Dearness Johnson, man, he had some runs inside the tackle. I don't think he was as effective as Lindsay, but, those two guys to me kind of stood out. Also, Ralph Webb from Vanderbilt, he was okay also. I don't think any of these guys go in the first 3-4 rounds, but, get you a late round steal, 5th, 6th round, man.
It'll be interesting to see how these guys test, whether it be at the combine or their pro day. Again, no one blew us away offensively in this particular game, but guys seem to be able to get downhill. Most of the backs seem to handle the traditional handoff fairly well. Again, a lot of these guys play, in that mesh point zone read offense. So moving on to the receivers, you have. I'm not going to go over all the names, but Headley, I'm going to ask you again. Who stood out for you on either side, East or West?
The East side wide receiver, Darius Fountain, Northern Iowa. He made a nice play on a slant route. He got open, broke for about 50, 60 yards. Doesn't seem like he has the 4.4 speed, man, because he looked pretty slow out there, but. He showed good hands also on a third down play where the DB was draped all over him, used his hands, caught the ball strongly. So I think Darius Fountain is a guy to watch. Deshaun Hamilton from Penn State also got the invite to the Senior Bowl. He didn't play particularly well. He had a big drop in the game. It wasn't effective in the Shrine game, but on all accounts he was effective in the practices. Also, I was hearing some buzz about Justin Watson from Pennsylvania. Didn't get much targets in this game. But practices he stood out also. So the East side, they had 3 receivers, that's been standing out all week in practices.
Yeah, Stephen Dunbar caught the big TD from Nick Shimonik from Texas Tech. He obviously has some size, a decent size speed ratio. Jeff Badditt out of Oklahoma made some plays out of the slot. Again, outside of Fountain, I don't think anybody really separated themselves or did anything to write home about. But again, the fact that these guys don't have a lot of time to develop a chemistry and certainly, when you don't necessarily have good quarterback play, it's difficult to be effective as a receiver. But again, it'll be interesting to see how these guys test when it comes to their pro day and the combine itself. And
another guy, Jordan Thomas from Mississippi State, he's listed as a receiver. But he looks to be more of a tight end.
Yeah, he's about 270.
Exactly.
Is he the Billy Brown?
Yeah, basically Billy Brown of last
season. I didn't get to see him much, man. They kept on taking him off the field, putting him back in, so he didn't really get to have a rhythm. But that's another guy. If he could convert to tight end.
Let's move into the trenches, man. And I thought this is where we really got an opportunity to see some good talent and some good play, better play than some of the skill positions. Starting with the offensive line, I know on the west side, Brett Toth, the offensive tackle from Army, actually played pretty well despite facing some quality pass rushers. He did a good job of sinking his hips on most occasions. Although the Chad Thomases, the streets of the world got the best of him here and there. I thought he demonstrated and acquitted himself pretty well. No one other than Austin Golson really stood out on the east side. He plays center for Auburn, but he's also played tackle and guard. He played a lot of guard in this particular game. I thought he did a really good job in the run game. Actually held up pretty well against the pass rush, the interior pass rush as well. That position flexibility is something that I know NFL teams covet, particularly when they're looking for a swing tackle, swing guard, guys that can do it all. You know what I mean? Because you only have so many game day active positions to go into. So. I've never really truly understood that, but that type of player becomes indispensable. I thought he played actually pretty well.
Yeah, I concur with the 2 offensive linemen you pointed out. Austin Golson, like you said, he played all 5 positions at offensive line positions at Auburn. So the versatility he could give a team. He's probably going to play inside at the next level, probably guard, but he showed well in the running game. Was a particular play when he blocked the offensive line on the double team, moved up, got a linebacker also, and he cleaned somebody on a pass protection. Pancaked them. So he demonstrated that he could play the pass and the run. Actually, both of these linemen also got invited to the Senior Bowl, Toth and Golson.
Yeah, and deservedly so. I mean, obviously they're going to face probably some better competition, or more a better collective, because I thought on both sides of the field, each team, the West and the East, they actually had quality defensive linemen in this game. And speaking of which, I was thoroughly impressed
they stole the show.
By that group, particularly on the East side. Forgive me for mispronouncing his name, but Foranzu Fatukasi, I wasn't familiar with going into the Shrine
Most
game.
impressive guy, right there.
And
he goes right there.
He stole the show.
Just seen him right
he
there.
He stole the show. You know what I mean? He heavy hands, quickness, good change of direction. He was awareness. You know what I mean? Really sat at the point of attack. He got up and down the field. I was really impressed by his effort. Chad Thomas has been a headliner throughout the practices, and he certainly made some plays, particularly when the opponent was in a passing situation. Got held a lot, but you can see his size, that length, that frame. Actually, on that play right there, he got double teamed right there. You know what I mean? Because you have to respect his ability to get up the field and after the passer. Also, a couple other guys on the east side, Contavious Street. A lot of the attention goes to Bradley Chubb, obviously, and certainly it makes perfect sense that he does receive that attention. But he was really impressive. His get off was really good. I mean, he was back in the backfield a lot, disrupting plays. And another guy that I wasn't familiar with that I thought really impressed me, his awareness, his motor, was Dalton Keene out of Illinois State. I thought he made some impressive plays. Probably one of the least notable going into this game, but certainly he's the type of guy that his performance makes me want to go back and watch the tape on him and really get a feel for what he brings to the table.
I guess the talk all practice long was Poona Ford. Poona Ford, a D tackle from Texas. This guy is he surprised me if he's 6 foot tall. He looks like he's under 6 foot tall, 5'11", 300-pounder. You can see him right here on this play right now.
He's squatty. That leverage, and he's just walking the guard.
You see that? He got the sack right there.
Play.
So he was impressive. To me, he impressed me in his pass rush. I thought he was mostly a run stopper guy, but he showed that he could, get to the quarterback also, which helps his draft stock. Mm-hmm. So, Poona Ford is a player to watch from Texas. And then the other side, actually continuing the west side, Joe Osman, Central Michigan. He might not be the most twitchy or athletic guy, but he just gets it done, man. It's similar to the guy we saw last year that drafted by the Saints.
Trey Hendrickson.
Trey Hendrickson. Yeah. Hendrickson's probably a little better athlete than Osman, bigger guy, but if you do the dirty job, you're nasty, you can get to the quarterback, you can play physically and run defense, man, you're going to make an NFL roster.
Absolutely.
Man.
And the name of the game, particularly with defensive lines, is depth. Mm-hmm. And the rotation, you know what I mean?
Right.
When you got guys out there, and of course, money comes into the equation in terms of, okay, if I'm paying you $100 million or $80 million or whatever the case may be, I need you out on the field. But keeping those guys fresh, keeping those guys, you know what I mean? The stamina becomes such a huge deal late in the game. We talked about it on our podcast in terms of what New England does to the opposition. They'll just start throwing the ball, pick up the tempo, and throwing the ball around to slow down your pass rush because guys get gassed. But it's the teams that have waves of pass rushers that really make a difference, and that's what you're looking for here. You're not necessarily looking for a guy. I mean, obviously, if he comes out to become a great starter, that's fantastic. But you want guys that are going to contribute. You know what I mean, to a rotation.
Yeah, man, I was watching Poona Ford here, and it's like he either he gets double teamed or he makes the play pretty much.
Yeah.
Sometimes I see him. They take him out of the play, but it's by design what the offensive line is doing. They're trying to double team Poona, get him out of the play, and then run, cut in behind him.
You just saw a nice swim move there by James Looney. I thought he made some plays. He flashed a little bit. Another guy that I wasn't particularly familiar with. He got demolished on that one by Golson, but I thought he had some flashes during the Shrine game as well. Let's move to the second level of the defense and the linebackers, and starting with the east side. I thought Kabinda from Penn State played pretty well. I know most people are familiar with Chris Worley. He made some plays behind the line of scrimmage. We didn't get an opportunity to see Matthew Thomas, unfortunately, but we did get to see a little bit of Jacob Pugh. Not very much, but Pugh is interesting to me. I think he has demonstrated at his time at FSU. He's been kind of a part-time player, never really a full-time guy, but he demonstrates the ability to get to the passer, and I think that's that's at a premium at this level. Again, you're looking for guys to kind of round out a rotation. I don't know that he's a guy that you want to put his hand in the ground. I think he's a little light for that. But you put him in an odd man front, 3-4, stand him up, and let him get after the edge. You know what I mean? Playing 25, 35 snaps a game. I think that's and playing special teams. I think those are the type of players that round out your roster, and you need those guys. So I really like what I saw from him in this in limited opportunities. And then on the west side, Leon Jacobs. Smart, heady player for Wisconsin. This, finds the football. That's typically what Wisconsin players do. They just have a way of finding the football. Outside of that, no one else really stood out to me. What about you, Heather?
The linebacker from Ohio State,
Worley.
Chris Worley. He made some plays. I seen him, get off of some blocks and make some plays in the backfield. So he flashes also. It's just he's got to develop consistency each and every down.
Let's spend a little time on defensive backs. I know you and Drew. This is near and dear to your heart. I'll just start with this, and then I'll let you guys take it away. I thought the DBs had several opportunities to make plays in this game that they didn't make. Whether it was
there,
exactly ricochet that actually came down. The receiver actually came down with that one off the ricochet. Guys miss opportunities to turn the football over, and the old adage is guys play defensive back because they can't play a receiver because they don't have the hands. But, in the NFL, the turnover margin is so paramount. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's a lot of parity in the NFL, and it's those extra possessions that you're able to get the opposition off the field in a league that's designed, for scoring points and it favors the offense, that you got to make these plays. So I was a little disappointed, in the defensive backs. I think they're good players. Quality players that were in this game on either side, but they didn't necessarily make the plays. And then again, it's a little difficult to really evaluate them when you have such bad quarterbacking. You know what I mean? The receivers didn't really have much of an opportunity. I will say this about Avonte Maddox. He got beat deep on one play. It was in good coverage, but it was a great throw. One of the better throws, one of the few good throws during the entire game. He seems destined to play in the slot. I like him. He's an intelligent guy. He tackles well. Good change of direction. The long speed is a concern, certainly, but I think inside the numbers as a nickel guy, and in this day and age, you got to have at least 3 or 4 corners because most teams are playing with 3 or 4 receivers. You know what I mean? So certainly, I like him. As you can see him on this play right here at the top of your screen. I think he's matched up against.
He's in a slot right there.
Yeah.
He got picked off.
But again, fighting through that. I think he's a quality player. Again, he's at the bottom of the screen here in the slot, and they ran it to the left. But what do you think about the performance of the defensive backs?
Yeah.
I imagine you were a little disappointed. with their play.
No one really stood out to me. Like you said, they dropped a lot of balls that came straight to their hands. The guy from USF is interested, Dietrich Nichols.
Yes.
From USF.
He has a tendency to find the football.
Exactly. He actually, he found the football. I think he dropped an interception in this game also.
Absolutely.
Damon Webb, safety from Ohio State. I think he was flying around in there. He made some hits.
It's Maddox there.
And it goes Maddox. So, all in all, man, I wasn't blown away by the defensive back play. Trey Marshall from Florida State was out there. He's known as a banger, but we'll see if he can cover at the next level. That's going to be his question mark.
Yeah, Maddox had a couple opportunities that you got to capitalize on. Those you don't get those back. You know what I mean? Yeah, as we're wrapping this up, Headley, who made themselves some money here? Anybody played well enough that you thought really is going to is building some steam heading into obviously Senior Bowl week, and then next month we'll be talking about the NFL Combine.
Yeah, I think Chad Thomas from Miami and Contavious Street from NC State. The name of the game is getting after the quarterback. Pass rushers, and these guys not only rushed well from the outside, they also slid in as a D tackle and made some push from the inside also. So that versatility from both of these guys showed up in this game. So I think those are the two guys. They're both going to be in the Senior Bowl. Or is Street in the Senior Bowl or just? I think just Thomas, right?
It may just be Chad Thomas.
Chad Thomas is going to be in the Senior Bowl, so he might have moved himself up from a day 3 pick to a day 2 pick, man.
I think anybody that got invited to the Senior Bowl has an opportunity to make themselves more money and should run with it, man. I mean, there's a reason why you got invited there, whether somebody had to back out because of injury or because they saw something in practice, because this game is very limited, like you guys said, about 45 times. Something had to be going on during practice that you got invited there. You know what I mean? So you got to go out there. You got to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Any guy that gets invited to the Senior Bowl certainly has opportunity to continue to build on that steam and force their way into a conversation where teams really have to take notice, and that may change your draft board up. You know what I mean? There's a lot of opportunity here. I know last year Hassan Reddick blew up after the Senior Bowl. You know what I mean? Throughout the practices, the game, and then going into the combine and so on and so forth. Again, my big takeaways in this particular game were, I think there are certainly NFL players throughout this particular contest. Unfortunately, they don't get a lot of time to really get a feel for one another. Coaching can be called into question here to a degree, because we're talking about position coaches being head coaches that may not necessarily be suited for that position. Whereas at the Senior Bowl, you have entire staffs. You know what I mean? That are doing the coaching. So it's a little bit it's a little different. Although the amount of time that the players have in both instances to practice is comparable. Yeah. It's a little different in terms of the experience. But certainly I think you can't, when we talk about the Shrine Game as a whole. Willie Roaf was just inducted into the Shrine Game Hall of Fame, as well as Brett Favre. You know what I mean? So we're talking about great players. Tom Brady, hell, he played in the Shrine Game. So Shrine Game shouldn't go unnoticed. You certainly want to dig in, and again, the number of guys in this particular game performed at a level that really compels us to go back and watch this film. So for Headley, for Drew, this is Juice. CPGM signing off.